Thanks for joining me today. So glad you could be here on this December 4th. Where the hell's the time gone? Anyway, let's just get into it. Let's talk about something that always gets Americans fired up. Foreign countries we can't find on a map. This week it's Georgia. Oh no. Oh no. But not the one with peaches and questionable election laws. I'm talking about that Georgia. It's a little bit closer to Vladimir Putin's backyard and a lot further from any U.S. taxpayer concern. If you haven't been following, there are massive protests happening in Georgia. The Tbilisi one, not Atlanta. And they have all the classic signs of what we in the business call a color revolution. You know, the type of movement where Western governments cheer, NGOs throw a bunch of cash around, and before you know it, half the country's waving European Union flags like they just got comped for a free vacation in Tuscany. Now, let's be clear. The Georgian people have every right to protest. Their government's unpopular. They claim the elections are sketchy. And they're caught between the West and Russia in a geopolitical tug-of-war. But here's the part that gets me. Why is it that every time there's unrest in a place Really? And get the mic closer. Okay, here we go. All right. But why is it that every time there's an unrest in a place most Americans can't pronounce, we end up footing the bill? Seriously, how many of you woke up this morning thinking, I'd love my tax dollars to go toward toppling a government in Georgia that I didn't even know existed until 5 minutes ago? Anybody? This isn't news. We've been playing this game since before TikTok. Ukraine? Check. Libya? Double check. Iraq? That one's still on layaway. But the U.S. has this habit of pretending we're just promoting democracy. But somehow every time we get involved, it's democracy with an asterisk. Like, yeah, you can have freedom, but only if you vote for the guy we like. And let's talk about the NGOs for a second. They're always the sidekicks in this story. Western-funded, non-governmental organizations swoop in with workshops on how to organize protests, resources to print those nifty signs, and humanitarian aid that looks suspiciously like seed money for political campaigns. They're like the Red Bull of revolution, giving wings to people who might not have gotten off the ground otherwise. Meanwhile, our government officials and media tell us it's all about freedom and human rights. Okay, great. But how much freedom are we going to export before we realize it comes at the expense of our own? We're $35 trillion in debt, people. At this rate, we'll be spreading democracy to Mars before we fix a single pothole in this country. Let's not ignore the elephant in the room, or should I say bear in the room. Russia. Georgia shares a border with Russia, and Putin is exactly the live and let live type. Every time we push a country closer to the EU or NATO, we're basically poking the bear. And sure, it may feel good at the moment, but do we really need to keep playing this dangerous game? It's like we're in an arms race with ourselves to see how many countries we can turn into future CNN specials. Coming up, Georgia in flames, protests in Kazakhstan, and the U.S. wondering why gas prices are suddenly $12 a gallon. Look, I'm not saying we should give Putin a free pass to bully his neighbors, if that's really what's going on. But maybe, just maybe, we don't have to be the global hall monitor. The Georgian people have agency. Let them decide their own future without Uncle Sam lurking behind the curtain like the Wizard of Oz. So here's my modest proposal. Before we spend another dime promoting regime change or freedom initiatives abroad, let's take care of business at home, fix the roads, fund education, maybe even, I'm just spitballing here, make healthcare something other than a dystopian nightmare. And while we're itching to meddle, let's meddle with Congress and make them balance a budget. Now that'd be a revolution worth funding. My name's Tom Coffey. This is the Coffey Nuance Show. The most ignored, censored commentary and news show live right now. Flame on. Oh, it's good to see that the sound levels are a little bit better today. Oh, we're trying it. But I know there's all kinds of other crap we could be talking about. Pete Hegseth or whatever. Who cares? I want to talk about what I want to talk about. Now, I don't know why does this keep going out? Does this one keep going out? Knock it off. Knock it off. Anyway, so what I want to say is that the protests that are happening in Georgia right now, over there in Eastern Europe, right next to Russia, have all the classic earmarks of a U.S.-funded color revolution. And I'm going to phrase it that way in particular because this is the framing that, all the CIA guys like to use when they're lying. Now, I'm not lying. But if you say it has all the earmarks, you don't have to have actual evidence. In this case, I don't have actual evidence. I'm not over there. I'm not seeing who's funding all of this. I'm not behind the scenes, but I got to say, damn, don't they have good branding? Look at this. The Georgia flag and the EU flag. So this really cute girl out there posing for pictures with the Georgia flag, with the EU flag around. Where did all those EU flags come from? I'd be interested in who was footing the bill for all the EU flags that are just suddenly appearing to all the young people in Georgia. Suddenly they all want to be part of the EU. Yeah. Because that's what you want when you're a young adult. You just think, hey, what big global organization do I want to be a part of? Anyway, let's put this in context of these protests that are happening in Tbilisi, Georgia. Okay, so color revolution is a term used to define. Interesting. Used to define ways to take over a country. And there's a particular playbook that has been used by our government that we're funding, that taxpayers are funding. And basically, instead of funding people with armed guerrilla groups to go in and overthrow or to move in with troops, that can be really expensive and not really popular. Well, what's a more efficient way in 2024 is the U.S. government funds groups to essentially propaganda in that foreign country. So in this case, in Georgia, what they would do is they'd fund a lot of NGOs, and these NGOs are just taking money straight from the CIA, State Department, whatever it happens to be, so they can keep their hands clean. So it's not technically from the U.S. tax dollars. It's they got someone in between to do the dirty work, if you will. But they show up with all the best branding and marketing and whatnot. Like we got this great picture here of this cute girl with the Georgian flag and the EU flag draped over her shoulders. That's that girl didn't come up with that herself, right? This is like Madison Avenue type marketing, if you will. Good coffee. So I don't know, a couple months ago, I named this will be Rose Revolution 2.0. Hasn't really caught on. No one else has said it. But how this works, so I don't have all the evidence. What I'm saying is, let's just go through it, okay? So all of the protests in Georgia align, so they look exactly like, they have all the hallmarks of a U.S.-funded regime change effort, okay? So what are the hallmarks of a color revolution, right? How can we identify these? So there will be some grassroots grievances. So some people will be upset about something, okay? But normally, if someone has an issue, like I have an issue that there's a Winnebago parked in front of my house for the last 2 weeks, it's not mine. I contact my city government, still waiting for the thing to be towed because I don't have an NGO behind me. But if I had an NGO funding these things, I would have all kinds of ways to amplify my grievance, right? If I had huge bullhorns or if I had local media that would do a story on it, I could probably get this Winnebago that no one appears to be in. They just parked it in front of my house. It'd probably be gone, right? And so that's what these NGOs do is they come in and they amplify existing grievances. So whatever it happens to be in this case, they have media connections. They have connections to making, printing presses and producing literature and all kinds of ways that they can amplify what people are upset about. Now, there could be some genuine dissatisfaction with the Georgian Dream government. That's the government that's currently in power. Guess what? I have some grievances with the local power as well, right? There's lots of things that I would change in Portland, Oregon, but they don't care about what I have to say because I don't have a bunch of NGOs funding my message and my grievances, okay? So there are some actual grievances that people have, but what happens is the U.S. and EU, they fund these efforts to really amplify that. Then what also will happen next is the U.S. and the EU will publicly support these protests. Okay, so if you could believe it, like for example, if I had some national leaders saying, hey, in Portland, Oregon, they're letting Winnebagos park and ruining the local experience of people that are paying high property taxes, and they let some bum park his Winnebago in front of their house and the local government doesn't do anything. And if I had national leaders calling and supporting me, that would amplify it. And that's what's happening in Georgia. We have the US and the EU are supporting the local protests. Why do they care? Interesting. So then what we have is we have NGOs, which are non-governmental organizations. These are organizations that are essentially cutouts for U.S. State Department, CIA organizations, State Department things. Rather than having a local branch of the CIA in Georgia, what they do is they get another organization that they give the money to, and technically the people that work there aren't technically working for the CIA. Okay, so there's a little bit of plausible deniability. Okay, and those local NGOs work as a catalyst to stir up the trouble and to promote these things. Next, we have all of these Western NGOs. They've got all the money, they've got all the cash, and they are fostering this protest movement. So they're paying for everything. Let's say you want to have a protest in a certain place. Well, they may show up at a college campus and give everyone free lunch and a bus ride over to where they're having their little protest. See, those things wouldn't happen organically, but when they're funded with billions and billions of U.S. tax dollars, you can make some things happen. Believe me, if I were funded and somebody gave me $1 million to have a local protest about the Winnebago parked in front of my house, believe me, I could shake things up. That's what's happening over there in Georgia. Now, these NGOs are providing resources and training, and they're legitimizing the opposition groups. Well, these opposition groups might just be people that are being paid by the NGOs. But the NGOs say, oh, we need to listen to these local leaders, these local protest leaders, because they have the spirit of the people that with grievances in Georgia. So next we have media framing, and this is a classic earmark, right, of color revolutions. You frame the current government as illegitimate. Okay, so one way that you would do this is you buy off all the media, right? Right? We saw this in Ukraine, right? Zelensky was funded by a guy with a media empire. Kolonovsky? Probably saying his name wrong. Who owned one of the biggest media companies in Ukraine. And then since then, they got rid of all the other media companies, because who needs the other media companies when you got the one media company that is promoting what you want to promote? And so in this case, our tax money will go to kind of take over all the local media so that it can repeat the propaganda that we want them to repeat. Then we'll also have the Western media, which is all in cahoots, amplifying things. So, for example, you know what happens in the U.S. if you have any claim of election fraud, right? You're removed instantly from all social media. But how these color revolutions happen outside of the U.S. is they make claims that the elections are not legitimate, and then those are amplified by all of the Western media also chiming in and saying, yeah, those elections they weren't legitimate. They looked really sketchy. Interesting. You can do that everywhere else on the planet, but not here in the U.S. So the next thing you see, which is what you would expect if this were a color revolution, you would then see the European Parliament condemn the Georgian government. And that's exactly what they did. Okay? Another classic sign of color revolutions are symbolism and messaging. So, for example, we see with this right here, we're combining the EU and the Georgian flag as a unifying symbol. So, because the color revolution, they want Georgia to be tied to the EU, tied to Western Europe, and not independent of Western Europe. They want them to be part of the EU, part of NATO. That's the goal of what's happening there. And so you'll see all of the branding tied in together to promote that. So if this were a color revolution, this is exactly what you would expect to see. And surprise, surprise, it's what we're seeing. Now, the same thing happened, 20 years ago. And it didn't take then. But somehow they think, we'll do it again. Maybe we'll get the current government overthrown. We'll put in somebody, pro-NATO, pro-EU. And then maybe we'll have elections. And hopefully this time they will vote the way we want them to vote. I doubt it. But that's kind of what we see here. So why is Georgia important? Well, it's right between, Europe and Asia, right on the border to Russia. So clearly Russia's proximity has a big influence as to why these are happening. And basically what the West wants to do is pull Georgia away from Russian influence. Even if the people there don't want that, right? And so since the majority of the people in Georgia don't want that, they have to manufacture this idea that they do. This is full-on gaslighting, right? But this is propaganda 2024 style, okay? You can follow the money. So if I had the resources, I would go and show that the U.S. Funding democracy promotion in Georgia through organizations like the National Endowment for Democracy. And that's exactly what's happening, okay? So You would also see financial support for civil society groups as a tool of influence. And surprise, surprise, that's what you see. If someone were to claim that this were a color revolution, we'd probably see a familiar pattern. Past color revolutions like the Rose Revolution, which happened, I don't know, in Tbilisi, Georgia, 20 years ago. We'd probably see the same things, and that's what we're seeing. We'd see a lot of things that are similar to what happened in the Orange Revolution in Ukraine. And surprise, surprise, it looks exactly the same. Okay. So I'm not there. I can't look at every single transaction, but it sure does look like the U.S., our tax money, is funding this color revolution in Tbilisi, Georgia right now. I would have thought, and what I made the claim earlier this year, is that perhaps they would be too concerned about shredding all their paperwork and deleting documents now that Trump has won the presidency, that maybe they might let this one go, but it doesn't look that way. It does look like they're going all out in Georgia right now. And there's going to be a lot of political instability if Georgian Dream, that's the political party that is running Georgia right now, is ousted. So that's what we have to look forward to. Yikes. And we know what happened after, the Maidan coup in Ukraine. We know what happened there. It didn't turn out well for the people of Ukraine. And if this continues to go on, I don't think it will be good for the people of Georgia. And I'm guessing, I don't know, but when you poke the bear, sometimes the bear rolls in tanks, which is what happened in Ukraine. I certainly don't want this to happen in Georgia. I don't think anyone does. Any sane person does, but I think probably DC right now, the permanent people running the place, looks like they want a response from Russia. I think it's terrible. But anyway, to conclude, I think people in Georgia may have some issues, as do I. I have issues. I don't think we need to be amplifying those issues and causing all of this. This has all the hallmarks of external influence on these protests. I mean, literally, like if you were to make a checklist, it would be every single thing that you would expect if it were a funded color revolution from the CIA. You would see, if you had a checklist for all of those, every single one would be checked. So I would call anyone to be skeptical of any narrative that's being presented on this topic, myself included. But I just wanted to share my thoughts on this because, frankly, I haven't seen a whole lot of chatter of this online. Not much. We all got to care about, I don't know, dumb stuff. I don't know. It's all priorities, I guess. But I expect in 20 years, I'll probably be proved right. That's my guess. I don't know. Anyway, those are just my thoughts. I wanted to give you a little bit of what's happening over there in Georgia, so that if you haven't heard about it anywhere else. And frankly, I haven't really heard about it anywhere else. So, you might be able to see it on, like RT or something like that. Oh, that's right. It's banned. So good luck with that. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. I don't know what the hell I'm doing with this channel, but we'll see. Stick around for the after show. I'll go through all your comments, and I'll be back on Friday. Hope you all are having a good one. Peace. So here we are. Hey, be sure to follow me over there on X. New graphic for X at Coffee Nuance if you want to. And looks like we got that a little bit part of the cut off. Let's see. Let's go. Nope, that's no good. It's the best I can do right now. Oh well. Hey, what's up, John? What's up, Tobias? Nice to see you. Sound levels are better today. Well, that's good. What's up, Rumble Gang? Sound is great, and I'm glad you're covering this topic. Glad I can catch you live today. Well, thanks, Gonzo. Very cool. If you are live, please blink your eyes 2 times. Parvis Abasov. There we go, blinked. I tell you what, I have a hard time seeing the comments when I'm just talking to the camera. So yeah, I am live, even though you posted that 10 minutes ago. So good to see you. What's up, Doug? I think you can question elections in the U.S. now that the Dems lost. Very true. Very true. Okay, let's see. And Erie Ferry's here. What's up? Good to see you. Anyway, looks like we didn't get a whole lot of comments, but we didn't have a whole lot of people watching us live. That's okay. It is what it is. I know that this wasn't the sexiest looking topic to get people clicking. I should start doing some clickbait or something, get more people to watch, but I don't know. Maybe I'll learn. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Come back on Friday. I'll figure out something interesting to talk about. At least it'll be interesting to me. And like I say, if it's interesting to me, perhaps it'll be interesting to you. Hope your day is awesome. Until then, peace.